point do some of these more like better players go, I really want to be playing Champions League? You know?
Soon. Listen,
so
Chelsea,
like, you know
Chelsea,
what I mean? At what point they're going to knock on the door and say, "Bria, I want to be playing Champions League, man"?
Chelsea fans cook Arsenal all the time for saying, if you guys don't start winning, Saka, Saliba, etc., will leave. Well, what about your club and your team? Now, Rory Jennings has called this out, and not everyone likes Rory, and that's fair. But he thinks that if Chelsea fails to make the Champions League this year, his next words were, if we don't make the Champions League, Cole Palmer will. Essentially saying Cole Palmer will leave this summer and go to a Champions League club.
Well, he'll be playing Champions League, doesn't he? You know.
Yeah, that's not. You are right, LB. It's not inconceivable. The better players will look at it. If you go 2 or 3 years, we're not getting back into that Champions League. Because what's it now on the clear? That'll be 3 seasons running. They haven't qualified for the Champions League. That's a long time. It's a long time. How many years were Arsenal out of the Champions League for when they got cooked? I know it was more than 3, but how long was it?
7.
Okay, so like, I'm not saying it's not been that long, but 3 suddenly becomes 4, then it becomes like, do you know what I'm saying? They've got to get back into it soon.
Quick.
Really, really
Trust
do.
me, it goes quick.
It does go quick.
You'd have to wonder whether the Palmer. Sorry, just quickly. Yeah, you'd have to wonder whether Palmer has some sort of clause in his contract, because he signed this massive contract right till 2033. So obviously, without a clause, I mean, you're talking 150 million quid to get him out of Chelsea, right? I think, right, something like that. Surely, you'd imagine he's got some sort of clause in that contract to say if we're not in the Champions League, I can go for 100 or something. You know, because otherwise, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's no clause in the contract, so yeah. I don't know. And maybe Chelsea wouldn't have given him a contract till 2023 if there was a clause in there. Maybe Chelsea thought that they would be getting back in the Champions. I don't know, but would you, as a player like Palmer, who wants to be playing Champions League and that, would he have signed that contract without a release clause? Even if it's just caveated of it's only active if we're not in the Champions League.
No, it's fair. Sorry, I'm eating a Rennie because I've got a bit of acid reflux. Sorry, I was eating a Rennie. Sorry.
No, the Cole Palmer thing, like, people are absolutely right to be calling that out. And do you know what? They're right to be calling Saliba and Saka and all that situation out as well. If we don't go and win trophies, what's it going to be? Chelsea. And if you don't get the Champions League, what are these actual players looking at? I look at the signings, right? This is the signings since under Todd Bowley. I'm not going to go through every single one of them because some of them are kids that have already kicked a ball, right? But I look at these. How many can you boys seriously in the chat count on to say that they've been a very, very good signing at Chelsea, right? Pedro Neto, Jorgensen, the goalkeeper, Renato Vega, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, Mark Gui, or Guy, whatever you called his name, Tosin, Kellyman, Cole Palmer, Petrovic, David Washington, Lavia, Caicedo, Robert Sanchez, Disasi, Leslie Hugo Chukwu, I think so, on loan somewhere, Nkunku, Nicholas Jackson, Enzo Fernandez, Madueke, Malagosto, Mudryk, Andre Santos, David Fofana, Badiashile, Aubameyang, Fofana, Kukureya, Chukwuemeka, Koulibaly, and Raheem Sterling.
I got 4.
Yeah, you got Palmer, Caicedo, Kukureya would go into that. Was Kukureya on that list? Yeah, Kukureya and Gusto. Yeah, they're the only 4 that I think have been good signings and show the ability to be Chelsea level. Every other signing.
Enzo's a bit of a weird one for me. I've seen Enzo play well quite a few times, but he ain't been consistent enough for me. So
I would put Pedro Neto in there, but I just don't think that anyone's killing off any of the services.
I wouldn't put Pedro Neto in there yet as a good signing. Not yet. I'd have to wait a little bit.
I do rate. I think he's a baller, though. I do think he's a baller.
Nah, this is just good. Did he score a goal against you?
Yes. He scored more than one. He scored more, though. Bro. He scored more. He scored against Wolves for us as well. It is quality.
I was saying this a few weeks ago, gents. Like, I've been someone that supported what Chelsea are trying to do, like the theory of what they're trying to do. Spend a lot, buy young, brilliant players, develop them. This summer, they bought slightly older players and then start adding experience in, mold it all together, start winning trophies. I can see the logic in that approach, and I've defended large parts of it. The problem now is that you're getting closer and closer to business time. So this isn't, I know like people joke about what phases slot in and what phases this person in. I enjoy the jokes. They're fun. but they're 3 years into their rebuild. This is not year one of their rebuild. It's a new manager, but the process and the project is essentially the same. And they've spent the money and they're building a squad and they just need a better coach for it. And yes, I think there's a lot of question marks over Enzo and he needs to be questioned about the mistakes that he's made. But you're right. You go through those signings and I think you could put 5, you might be able to force 6 into a list where you go, they've been successful, they're hits, and they've shown the potential to be good enough to be Chelsea players. Next season, they go into year 4 of this club-wide rebuild of a completely new approach, new ownership, new direction, new people running it. And look, I think by the time you're going into, if I'm getting towards season 4 under Ineos, and we're going, Jesus Christ, they've bought 30 odd players, and we're looking at 5 have been successful. I'm panicking a little bit. I expected more of those Chelsea players this season to go on, and they started well, but this last 10 games, this last 2 months, the fall off has been crazy. The fall off has been absolutely. I thought it was clicking and working. I'm going, do you know what? Maybe there is sort of the fruits of the labor are now starting to come through, and they're quite tasty. There's some decent output here. There's some decent success on the horizon, but right now it doesn't look that way. Yeah, maybe I'm being a bit premature and just looking at the last 10 games.
No, I don't think you're being. No. I think you have to realize, right, when you get a manager like this guy, right, because he's so young and he's so inexperienced, he's likely to go through a period in the season where he's struggling. That is one of the downsides to having a young manager, because they're learning on the job. Yeah. When Pep Guardiola's not really learning that much now, is he? He's been managing a long time. Fergie wasn't learning that much towards the end of his career. He knew what to do. Yeah, these managers are young. It's similar to Arteta. Arsenal are holding the hand of Arteta through his development as a manager. Yeah, and that's maybe why you see so many Arsenal fans invested in the manager, because it's almost as if like you're supporting the manager as well as the club. And Chelsea are going down the same road with Maresca, because a young manager. He's going to get things wrong. He's going to get loads of things wrong. It's going to take him time to get them right because he's young. That's what happens when you're young.
Yeah. And look, Chelsea fans are saying, what do you mean by the project, Terry? Look, I know not everyone likes those words and the buzzwords around it, but when Clearlake came in, they've essentially looked to rebuild the whole club from top to bottom, inside out, from a footballing philosophy to the people running the club to a transfer approach. Just they're spending big money, but it's a different approach to what you had with Roman. And the reason why I think you've got to look at the timescale, and it's important, you look at FSG. They took over Liverpool in October 2010. And by the season 2013-14, so three and a half to 4 years later, they were challenging for the Premier League. They then dropped off, brought in Klopp. Took them a while, but they had moments. And what I mean by that is they had those moments where they were challenging for those league titles. Then went a bit wrong with the manager. They brought in Jurgen Klopp. Took them a while, but then boom, straight away, Europa League finals, winning Champions Leagues. It took them a couple of years under Klopp to challenge for the Prem, and then they maintained a really high level. But if you look at Sheikh Mansour, Man City, comes in the summer of 2008. Three seasons later, they're in title races. The fourth season, they're winning the league, as an example. At Arsenal, the Cronkies take full control. Josh gets more involved. Edu comes in. The club, whether you like the phrases and the words, they overhauled everything. They started again. They went back to basics. Going into their third to fourth season, they were challenging for the league. Now, I'm not saying they've won it. They haven't won it. You guys are about to go into your fourth season. You look at the examples of the other big clubs with new owners. You start going into your fourth year, you should be somewhere near being able to challenge for a title. I'm not saying you should be perfect. I'm not saying you should guarantee being over the line. I'm not saying you have to be the greatest version of Chelsea in the history of your club. But there comes a point 3 or 4 years in where if you're not seeing the growth, if you're not seeing the direction, if too many of the signings are a bust, if you're not having confidence in your team, questions have to be asked. I'm only going by the history of other.
How many of those examples, Terry, as well? How many of those examples you've just given, and they're all good examples, how many of them spent that much money that quickly? I don't think Man City spent that much money that quickly, did they, LB?
1.5 billion.
Not in the first 3 years.
1.5 billion in like what, 2 windows or whatever the hell it is.
Obviously, the transfer window's inflated a little bit since we
yeah, still,
and there was
that's unbelievable amount of money, though.
We can go and have a look, right? I'm going to have a look here. So I'll go back to those seasons because it went that long ago. If I scroll back, so the first summer, they didn't really spend that much, really, because it happened quite late. But the first season, they spent 157 million. Second season, 147 million. Third season, 184 million. But
Who's this?
This is City.
Man,
but you
City,
challenged for the Prem in 2010-11, right? You were in the title race where you were in top 4 or in the title race. I can't quite remember about looking back and looking. And then and then 91 million. Now inflation has come in. Inflation has, like, the value of the TV deals have gone up since then. So, but even if you doubled it because of inflation, you're still not on 1.5 billion euros. You're not. Yeah. So, exactly. and this is the thing. And that's why when people say, Terry, why are you giving Ineos so long? I'm calling out their mistakes. I've called out the stuff to do with the All Blacks today and stuff like that. But I'm giving it 3 to 4 years because I understand that we're Man United in name and history only. We've got to gut everything and start again. I look at all the other clubs that have had to do rebuilds from the ground up. And some people use Chelsea. Chelsea had financial problems. But Chelsea were a team that the year before Roman, they were a Champions League team when Roman came in. They were not completely broken as a footballing entity on the football pitch, financially in trouble, but they were a Champions League side. Roman then came in. If, for instance, Man United right now were a title challenging team or a regular Champions League team, really good side, and then we got new owners, I wouldn't be saying, I'll give you 3 or 4 years to make us challenge. The scenario would be different. But for Chelsea, I just look at it and think it's the end of your 3rd year of these guys, and you've got to be answering these questions. You simply have to. It's as straightforward as that. You've got to be asking these questions because the fall off in the last 10 games has been crazy. And the next 2 matches are hard as well. I was looking at their next 2 games. I think they're away at Brighton, and I want to say away at Aston Villa, but I could be wrong. Let's go and have a little look here at Chelsea. I know that they're away to Brighton on Friday, this Friday coming. And then they're away to Aston Villa. They could be 2 L's. They could be. They're going to have to improve. They could be 2 L's, and then the pressure then is going to absolutely mount up like you wouldn't believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like I say, I mean, let's be honest, right? The expectation and goals for him are not that high. Get top 4, win the Conference League. With that squad, that is doable. I think if he doesn't do it, right, and obviously at the moment he's on track. If he doesn't do it, he should be fired.
Yeah, I agree.
Because that squad is more than capable of getting top 5. Remember, it's pretty much top 5 this year. It's like a 99.5% chance of the 5th spot in England getting Champions League, right? So he needs to get top 5 and win a Conference League. If he doesn't do that, I'd sack him. Sack him. You don't deserve the job. If you can't get top 5 with that squad and win the Conference League with that squad, it's embarrassing, man. He should be sacked. I think he'll win the Conference League. I just think the top 5 is the one that's going to be interesting because someone's missing out. It's going to be, I think, City, Newcastle, or Chelsea going to miss out. I think Forest have got it. I think Forest will get it as well.
Listen to me. Chelsea got a team that will kill it. People don't see, but soon Chelsea will be one of those teams that people talk about.
No, I disagree, Ray. I think you've got a team that is about to kill. Yeah, but the gun ain't loaded, bro. Yeah, I mean, this is why you need to go into a transfer market and buy a couple of extra players. Once you got a couple of extra players, then I reckon you're there. You need a goalkeeper, a centre back, a striker. So you got them 3 players, agreed. But not right now. No way. You ain't winning the league with Sanchez in there. Yeah,
they're nowhere near winning the league. Nowhere near winning the league.
Patrick here says that they can't buy a goalkeeper because they bought a couple of them on long-term contracts and they can't sell them on. So, who wants to buy an underperforming goalkeeper?
I keep hearing this from a lot of our Chelsea fans, that are telling me that we can't buy a goalkeeper because we've already bought 8 of them or whatever, and they're not going to get rid of it. Well, you've got to look above then. If there's a problem, if you've bought 8 goalkeepers and they're all pretty crap and none of them can be number 1, you have to look at your recruitment and question it and have concerns about it. Because if you're going to buy that many goalkeepers and not one of them is good enough to be the number 1, and you're not really sure who's your best one is, there is serious problems there. Because I think the best one that I've seen in the last couple of years at Chelsea has been that Petrovic geezer who they got rid of. He's been better than Sanchez. He's better than that Jorgensen guy.
I agree, yeah.
So I don't really know what happened with him, but they need to either bring him back, or they need to get someone, which is what they need to do, is what me and the LB think, is to upgrade on it, man.
I agree. Saw a stat the other day that Palmer has created the most chances in Europe, but little to no assists. He needs better players around him. Of course he does. Of course he does. He deserves it.
But then when we said in the summer, that Chelsea should go buy a striker, why was we dealt with loads of Chelsea fans saying like, nah, chilling, Jackson's good enough?
Well, a lot of Chelsea fans were defending the wage structure comments. Those wage structures, and that's also the other side of this. They need better than what they've got. And if you, and this is, I didn't even think about it until this super chat. If we're saying 5 out of all those signings have worked, what's the expression? Like if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And you look at it, and it's an expression for like bad workers. You need people that are efficient and turn up on time and are well mannered. Yeah. And it's a great. And they're not paying the going rate for the best players in Europe, and maybe that's why only 5 of the however many signings they've made we're looking at and saying, you are Chelsea level, you're it. Maybe they have to break the pay structure that they've put in place. Maybe they have to sign players that do want 200 grand a week because those players are the ones who are good enough. It's typically speaking, and Man United we break this trend, but typically speaking, when you look at the most paid players in the world, they're the better players. I mean, it's pretty typical. 1.5 billion to have an incomplete squad is negligent at the highest degree, criminal almost. This has got to be money laundering. It's genius. Just cleaned 1.5 billion is what the case says here.
It's mad.
Crazy, isn't it? Crazy.